Lastly, the last topic we're going to speak about today, is the conversation about Lyle Foster. So I will set the scene. Lyle Foster plays for Burnley in England. Burnley just recently got relegated back to the Championship. They'd gained promotion last season. Lyle Foster was called up. Lyle Foster had some issues, some depression issues, some mental health issues. And he flagged it to the club and missed a lot of games. He missed a lot of games with his depression. He missed a lot of games working through some of those things. And during that time, he had received a call-up for AFCON, the African Cup of Nations, but couldn't, obviously, because of him dealing with the issues, couldn't take part in the AFCON. So the story that was told to us was that, he's dealing with this depression and he can't play. And I think everybody understood. Then it started being clear that he was playing games for Burnley during the time that the AFCON was happening. So pre-AFCON, when he was called up initially for the prelim squad, it wasn't AFCON time. But then as the weeks went along, he played more and more games for Burnley. I believe he played 7 games after his depressive episode, and maybe it would coincide with 3 matches in the AFCON. So fans took it, and we believed that, he doesn't want to come play for Bafana. There he is on the screen playing for Burnley, yet when we call him up, he doesn't want to come. There's been talks from fans that maybe he feels better than Bafana, maybe Burnley feels better than Bafana, and that maybe he shouldn't come back to play in that situation. We've had some holdouts before. Obviously, when it hits social media and media in general, it becomes very salacious. It becomes very, controversial. People start saying things about his mental health and things like that. And it's been suggested that maybe he shouldn't come back to play for Bafana. And that the conspiracy theory is, now that Burnley is relegated, now that you guys aren't playing meaningful games anymore, you want to come back to Bafana specifically for a World Cup qualifier. So for those who don't know, on the 7th, we're going to be playing Nigeria in a World Cup qualifier. Very, very important game. I think before I give my opinion, I want to look at this from the different viewpoints. So as fans, it's very shocking to get told that a player was injured, or a player lost his passport, or a player had a shoulder injury. Only for, the national team structures to come out and make it seem as though, a player didn't want to come. So in the case of Blom, that he made up the injury so that he could stay in St. Louis. In the case of Ngezana, really, you're going to lose your traveling stuff. That is I misplaced my passport, was basically his excuse. He went on to win the league in Romania, but that was his excuse. We had Abo Pesita not wanting, being given off. So from a fan perspective, you look at it and you go, Mokoena. We see him. He's playing every week on 203. You can put it on and you'll see him playing for Burnley. He's played versus Liverpool and all of those things. So you start questioning, rightfully so to a degree, was it really that bad, or did he really just want to get out of national team duty? Maybe he doesn't rate the national team anymore. He's playing in England, EPL, right? So that I would say is the fan view. You look at it from Burnley's perspective. From Burnley's perspective, this player missed a lot of games. He came out, he told us that he's depressed. We didn't know necessarily how to deal with it. We booked him into places, the right facilities and things. And Lyle Foster, carried on with his career. He got better after those weeks. Then they might feel, as the club that is financially tied to Lyle Foster, that maybe he should be at home. maybe he should stay with us, and we can, guide his rehabilitation, guide him getting back into the team, guide that process, right? But on the other end, Lyle Foster would not be the first player, African player, to not make it to their national team during the AFCON. He wouldn't be the first African player to come up with a phantom injury, or club or him comes up with a phantom injury that stops him from being able to go play in the AFCON tournament. Why? Because they're active during December. The EPL, like we always say, doesn't stop. And the December period is crucial. December, early January is a crucial period for EPL teams. They often complain about African players going missing for AFCON. How can you trust on these players if they're just going to leave in January to go play? So I think we can also understand when people look at it and say, is this not just another trick? And it's not to say that Lyle Foster wasn't depressed, but was his recovery exaggerated by Burnley so that he could stay and play those games? Now remember, when he came from his depression, that episode where he was out, he played hard minutes. Boma 85, 90 minutes. He played for Liverpool. He played in some very heavy games, especially for a team that was in the relegation zone and fighting a relegation battle. Their coach was under fire. So you can understand if you look at Burnley and say, you know what, it's starting to look like you guys wanted to keep him there so he could play these games as one of your key players and keep him from the AFCON squad. You didn't even ease him back into the game. You kind of just plopped him there and left him there. It's easy to come to that because it's been done before, and it's not to put it on Burnley. It's not to put it on Burnley. It's been done before that way. It's very easy to do it. But then I feel like there's another side to it, and this side comes down to Safa. Sorry, before I finish on the Burnley point, they rushed him back so quickly that he played, was it 5 games? And had to go off for another 5 games, not in the squad. So that might point to even them misusing the player and forcing him to come back so quickly. Then the last viewpoint obviously is then Safa and Bafana and the media and how these things are reported to us. I, for one, am not a person who believes that no communications happened between Bafana and that Burnley team, especially if this is one of your key players, one of the top players in South Africa, one of the guys that are playing their trade in the top 1 of the top 5 leagues. You'd say that, you'd keep tabs, you speak to them, you'd make sure that by the time I have to call a preliminary squad, I have some information that leads me to believe that Lyle Foster will not be available or will be available. And in the case that he will not be available, you don't name in the preliminary squad and you let them go. So if well and truly his recovery from the depression had to go on a very long time, surely Safa would have reached out, and then Bruce doesn't put his name down on the thing. We argue as fans about whether he should or shouldn't play, but there isn't a drama. There's a lot of drama around Bafana. In the Blom situation, for example, Blom, they said that he had faked a shoulder injury and that they had sent a report to Bafana saying that Blom was injured and he couldn't take part, but then it turned out that he could actually take part and play in those games, right? And he wanted back into the squad right before they left. So Bafana was like, no, we don't want you to come in because you said you were injured. You lied about your injury. And one, it calls to question the reporting of this. Is it all just made so that we can click more, so that we can speak more about it, so that they can sell more newspapers and retweet and get more impressions on their articles and things? Is it a case that Hugo Bruce continues trusting SA media and speaking out and saying rough things that are interpreted a certain way, right? So if you interpret the Jabulo Blom thing as him not wanting to come to the national team, you learn that energy from the coach and you take that energy into any other question. So now that we're questioning Lyle Foster, you've taken that energy of if a player doesn't want to come play for the team, leave him, screw him. And we're reacting that way. So I want to acknowledge the part that the media, that Bafana, that Hugo Bruce has to play in the perception of these things. A lot of what we're speaking about in our social medias and even here on the show is not fact, right? It's not things that I know for sure and I've got sources and stuff. This is me just speaking about the situation. And a lot of the time, that is the idea that we carry and we have. So these stakeholders have to understand what they're dealing with here when different visuals come out. It could be that Burnley reached out to SAFA and told them that, hey guys, we want to guide this. And SAFA agreed, or Bafana agreed, or at the very least they knew, right? They knew. But it also creates a big problem. And I want to, while I'm speaking about this, say that I'm leaving the door open to anything. I'm leaving the door open to Burnley being right, Bafana being wrong, or the other way around. I'm leaving the door open to Lyle Foster was genuinely could not play for Bafana, or that, you know, he decided that he didn't want to. The question now becomes, should he be called up? And I think from Foster's point of view, he was the one that had to flag this thing to the team that, hey guys, I'm not feeling right. I'm not comfortable right now. My mental health is taking a hit. Can we please do something, because I see that it's too much. So already on that token, you could tell that maybe the team didn't notice, and Vincent Kompany did come out and say, you know, he's proud of Lyle for standing up and speaking out. He's proud of Lyle for coming out and really bringing these issues to the fore and maybe making them also realize how to deal with it. He said that he's learning from this how to deal with these issues of mental health, right? Can either party be trusted with the health of Lyle Foster? Because like I said, they brought him back, they put him in the crunch games, he had to take another break. Right now, he's getting called up. And if the pressure coming from the country, which is the narrative that people have made, if the pressure coming from the country is so loud, is it the right move to bring Lyle Foster back into the national team when we're playing arguably our biggest rival? Actually, not arguably, they're our biggest rival. We know how tempers flare when Bafana and Nigeria meet the Super Eagles. We know what happens. I'm a content creator. I can tell you guys, I can tell you for free. That Nigeria game, I did a video, a pro Bafana video on my TikTok, and hey, the comments that I got, I've never gotten that many comments. And there it's even joking. I'm a content creator, it's fine, right? Content creator, it's fine or good, whatever. But I can only imagine what it's like for a player. So if this player has gone through those issues, should he be having his first game be in Nigeria for his own well-being after getting relegated? Should he be playing in that type of game that carries so much? Will he be able to handle it? Number two, is it unfair on the players that have been holding down the fort while Lyle Foster was struggling with his problems? Is it fair that the guys that went to AFCON, the guys that finished third, the guys who played about Andorra, Algeria, the guys that have been here should be pushed aside for this player to come back in? Is it the right timing? There's a bunch of questions around this that are very interesting questions. I would like to look at the situation, if coming to my point of view, I would like to look at the situation from the point of view that, guys, it's an injury, it's depression, it's all of that. If I see an injured player playing, a supposedly injured player playing before we have to go to an AFCON, I get disappointed. I get disappointed if there's nothing coming from the club or from SAFA to say, guys, this is the arrangement we had made. And if it is true that Burnley and Lyle Foster came together and decided that he shouldn't go to AFCON, even though it was proven that he was fit enough to go play for Burnley in those games in the interim, I'm one that says he shouldn't come back to the national team. If it's like this. Guys, we had players like Abu Onana playing games, getting into jets and flying in. And this is on the assumption that Burnley and Lyle Foster sat together and they decided this. And Burnley advised him of this from a bad place. The way that the European teams usually advise these African players when it comes time for AFCON. If it is like that, rather don't come. And for me, it goes for any of the players. If St. Louis City, I believe it is, if St. Louis City decided that they are not going to let Blom go, and Blom and them conspired, don't come back. You've made your choice. Because if the theories are meant to be believed, remember, it's a World Cup qualifier, this one. It's a World Cup qualifier. It's a high-profile game. If Bafana get into a World Cup, the things it will do for the profiles of some of these players would be incredible. He's looking for a new team, or no, let me not say he is. He could be looking for a new team since this relegation. Get me? Maybe it looks good to just kick a ball for Bafana in a very big game and then go back. Same goes for a lot of other players. Percy Tau had a similar situation where Bruce rested him because of his, he felt that his mental health was not right enough. And in that situation, I'm like, but Bruce, if you can do it for Percy Tau, why don't you allow the Sundowns players who at that point had played so many different games, for them to not have to fly from Tanzania or to Tanzania, not have to fly in Kari last minute. Maybe allow them the time to also rest. But I will say, I don't trust anyone in this situation. I don't trust Burnley's intentions. I don't trust Burnley's intentions because they're a European team. And European teams often make it vocally known that AFCON messes with their schedules. That players have to fight in order to be let go for AFCON. I don't trust their intentions because even when they played him, 5 days later, he had to be taken out of the team for another 5 games because he was rushed back. He's depressed. He comes from this facility. He's been working on this thing for weeks. He gets placed directly into an intense 45-minute game. After that, it was 85 minutes, 90 minutes, 90 minutes, 90 minutes. I don't know if the South African pressure is as much as the pressure of the EPL. So Burnley, I believe, mismanaged. And to their credit, Coach Company came out and said, guys, I'm learning. He's teaching us how to deal with these things. So I don't trust them. I don't trust Safa and Coach Bruce because we had situations like Abu Mudau where, Rulani comes out and says, I'm surprised that this coach was, I'm surprised that this player was called up knowing that he's got an injury. And then Bruce comes out and says, he's got an injury. I didn't know about that. No one told us that he has an injury. Now, at the national team level, do we believe that? Do we believe that story? I don't trust the media because we also know that they go out and give you half stories so it looks more sensational. They get a headline. You can they make it seem the stories like this so that you can all click and all engage and they can go back to their advertisers and all of that stuff and sell and make more money and maybe increase their profile. So I don't necessarily trust them. All I will say last time, as a South African fan, if it were to come out that this was people conspiring to stop this player from being able to come for Bafana, because we watched him play during AFCON. If it were ever to be confirmed, don't come back. And for me, it's any of the players. I don't care. People might say, no, he's the best striker you have. Where are you going to find another one? This guy plays. It's fine. We came third in AFCON, well enough without him. No player should be holding us ransom because of their teams. The part that I think gives me the other side where I go, I don't believe the story fully, is I don't think Bruce would bring back Lyle Foster without having a conversation with the team. And he's yet to be picked, actually. This is a preliminary team. I don't think so. So I'm also going to give them benefit of the doubt and say, you know what, guys? Maybe you did your due diligence. Maybe everything you said is true. Maybe you all had a conversation and decided that, all right, guys, it's fine, we're going to bring him back. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The next time Mamelodi Sundowns has to go play 1,000,000 games and you have friendlies, leave those players at home. Let them focus on their clubs. The way that Upesi was allowed to focus on Ahly during those Algeria-Andorra friendlies, give that courtesy to the other guys. And more importantly, to Coach Bruce, don't make things messy. Stop being so messy in the media. Stop speaking your truth in the media, because if you speak your truth, it has long-lasting repercussions. One could argue that all of this could have been avoided if he wasn't called in that preliminary team. If Bafana had picked up the phone and called Burnley and said, guys, what's the 411 on this guy? So it's a very sticky situation. I know I've been saying I'm going to end off, but truly the last thing I'm going to say, let's try find some empathy. As I've been saying now, my issue is not necessarily with the depression. It's not necessarily with Lyle Foster himself. It's more to do with the people around him. So let's be kind to Lyle Foster, that he did go through this. He did miss games. It is a thing that he went through, right? Nobody's disputing that. It's just how the teams handle these things, and what transpired is what creates these situations. So remember, mental health is a real thing. Mental health issues are a real thing. Depression is a real thing. All of these things are real things. So please, when you talk about it, let's try use some decorum when speaking about it, and let's try keep it about the thing. Like I said, for me, if a player is told to me that they can't play for the national team, and I see them playing for their club team while the national team is playing, or right before the national team is meant to play, I look at it and I go, I don't know. I'm not sure about this. And let's also not try and diagnose where the problem came from. I've had conversations where people were telling me that, South African fans are the reason why. That we are so harsh, that these players can't handle how harsh we are, and things like that. And I'm like, I don't know. I see that, but you also see what happens that side in the EPL on a daily basis with their media, with their fans, and all of that stuff. I'd argue that that's a little bit more pressure.